As much as it pains me to say this, God of War Sons of Sparta is one of the most average, overpriced Metroidvanias I have ever played. And this is sad for me to say as a long-standing fan of the IP and franchise. God of War is known as to be one of the most pinnacle games and franchises in gaming recent history. That is why the game has lasted 20 years. That is why the franchise itself is beloved and one of the reasons many people buy a PlayStation console. So with the shadow drop of Sons of Sparta, it is unfortunate for me to say that there is essentially nothing special about this game, and the fact that its price point is too high for what it brings to the table makes it anything other than an average game and difficult to recommend to anyone other than hardcore God of War fans. And even then, hardcore God of War fans will have difficulties completing this game. Let's get into it. Let's start with the good. The good about God of War Sons of Sparta comes in the form of the voice acting and storytelling. The story here is good. It does take place with a young Kratos who is still a Spartan and prior to his days of meeting Ares when he still had a brother. And the story itself, the overarching one, and the bond between Kratos and his brother Deimos is actually really told really well, and it's very well voice acting. The other big positive that accompanies this story and its voice acting is the soundtrack. Composed by Barry McCreary, he's a guy that also composed 2018 God of War. He also composed Ragnarok, and I'm not sure if he did the original trilogy, but his music is as a standout in this game, and it is one of those things that really helps shine with the presentation. But that's where basically the positives of this game, or the outstanding positives, end. The rest of the game is basically average at best. The visuals themselves are okay. I feel like and I'm not talking about just in terms of the pixelated graphics, but in terms of the art itself. None of the environments or world ever stood out to me where it was like, oh wow, this is pretty. No, nothing. I didn't feel anything with the presentation. When it comes to the big elephant in the room, which is the combat. The combat in this game, I don't want to say that it's bad. But the thing is, what they try to do here with this game is take God of War 2018 and Ragnarok's signature combat and implement it into a Metroidvania type game. And it works for the most part, except for one aspect, and that is the cinematography. One of the things that really makes the combat of God of War so good is when you pull off the brutal kills and you get those cinematic sequences of Kratos just raging, ripping enemies apart, blood splattering everywhere, etc., etc. None of that is found in this game. All of it is just meh. It's just okay. It doesn't have that cinematography. It doesn't have that. Now, I know people will sit there and say, wait a minute, this is a side-scrolling Metroidvania. Yes, it's true. But you know what game had cinematic brutal kills and finishes when you brutally kill someone or the bosses or what have you? It's a game called Prince of Persia Lost Crown. That game had the cinematography. That game's combat felt more like God of War's combat than this game did. And that says a lot. So when it comes to the core combat of the game, it's not that it's bad. It's just that Prince of Persia Lost Crown was better. Shinobi Art of Vengeance was better. And the list goes on. Silk Song is better. The combat here is just serviceable. Now, when it comes to progression and customizing your character, they basically took everything from the God of War games and implemented it here. You have different pieces of equipment that can be leveled up. You have your spear itself has 3 different parts that can be leveled, multiple levels, and each of which have different perks and different skills that can be added to Kratos to make different builds and things of that nature. So all of it, anyone who's played God of War 2018 or Ragnarok will be right at home in terms of the menus, in terms of how you level up Kratos. The other aspect too is the skills themselves. Kratos does have skills, and again, much like the mainline entry counterparts, it is taken right from there. So for God of War fans, it's easy for you to get into Sons of Sparta and actually just jump in and play. Unfortunately, pretty much all of the aspects of the game will leave you wanting more. And the other thing too is the bosses. God of War, especially the original trilogy, was notorious for having amazing boss battles. Now, 2018 and Ragnarok did have some good boss battles themselves, but they paled into comparison of the original trilogy. And then you get to Sons of Sparta, and it's even like lower grade than that. It's not even as good as 2018 or Ragnarok. And again, when you compare this to the boss battles of other Metroidvanias, the aforementioned Prince of Persia Lost Crown, Silk Song, Shinobi Art of Vengeance, you could go on and on. Those games have better boss battles than what was here on display. One of the other negatives that I have here is that the game is advertised as a 2-player co-op. Unfortunately, nowhere in the promotion material or in the advert material for the game store says that you have to beat the game to unlock that feature. So many people were already upset on top of this with the idea and knowledge of knowing that, hey, 2-player co-op is only available after you beat the game, and you weren't told this before you bought the game. So overall, what you have here is a Metroidvania that tries to take the God of War spirit and doesn't reach the levels of the series as a whole. Like, that's the real issue. The God of War franchise is held to such high regard. Many of their entries are, praised beyond belief, multiple awards. Then you get to this, and it just feels like a cheap knockoff. And it never hits the same feeling as the mainline entries of the franchise. So overall, do I recommend God of War Sons of Sparta? I would recommend it to hardcore God of War fans, but only at a discount. At the current price point of $30, there's other Metroidvanias that are available to you for a cheaper price and a higher quality. As mentioned, Shinobi Art of Vengeance, Prince of Persia Lost Crown, Silk Song, all of which are better games that you could get for the same price, if not cheaper. So while I do think God of War fans can enjoy this to a degree, most Metroidvania fans will probably feel a little bit wanting more. The last issue I want to talk about with God of War is the overall pacing of this game. The pacing of this game's story is incredibly slow. And you have to play through essentially half of the game before things get good, and it's quite a slog to get there. While the game does have a good story and good characters, the core gameplay doesn't get interesting till halfway in, so despite that, it is a slog. And with the story, the other issue that came about is whenever you fight a boss that has dialogue prior to the boss encounter, you can't skip that dialogue if you are retrying the boss fight after dying. You have to go through the dialogue every single time. So overall, God of War Sons of Sparta is the worst entry of any God of War game. It is rightfully rated the way it is. It is only a game for the hardcore fans, and even then I would only recommend it at a discount, not at the full price. I'm giving God of War Sons of Sparta a 6 out of 10. This is Veteran Gamer, and I hope to see you guys next time.